So today we are going to be talking about something called illuminated letters. Have you ever seen anything like this before? Way back in the Middle Ages, years and years ago in Europe, before we had any such thing as a copier or a printing press, if you were to get a book, it had to be handwritten by someone. So there were people who lived in monasteries, and their entire job, what they did all day long, was look at a book and copy every single word by hand. Isn't that crazy? Now, do you think that might have been kind of a boring job? Yeah, these guys got so bored out of their minds. So what they did was they started making their lives more interesting by creating some artwork in these books. And so they started creating these really beautiful pictures inside of their books. And if they couldn't think of a picture to add, they would often decorate the first letter on the page with a bunch of little designs and symbols, whatever had, usually something that had to do with what they were writing. And so we got all of these crazy images that were painted with all these different colors. Some of them even had gold on them, and they were really beautiful. This made the books even more expensive than they would have been originally. Now, it was kind of sad because a lot of people couldn't get books back then. But nowadays, it's great because we have a lot of books available to us, right? Whether it's on the computer or at the library. So it's neat because nowadays we can take those pictures and everybody can look at them, and we can get ideas from them as artists, because as artists it's really good to look at what other people are doing so you can learn and come up with new ideas. So today we are going to be making our own illuminated letters. We're going to use the first letter of our name, and I'm going to teach you guys how to create bubble letters. We're going to create what's called emphasis. What's emphasis? Emphasis means to make something stand out. So a lot of times these beautiful illuminated letters would have borders or picture frames around them. So we're going to learn how to draw a border around ours to make sure it really pops out of the page. We're also going to be practicing using different types of lines again, like we have in the past, and symbols. Now remember, a symbol is a picture that means something. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit more today. All right, so we are going to start by drawing the first letter of our first name in our handwriting, really big on our paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw an R, since that's the first letter of my first name. And I'm going to draw it with a pencil. I know it may be a little hard to see, but I want to be able to show you guys how to erase it later. So now that I have my R, those are what we're going to call our skeleton letters. Those are this is the letter that we are going to erase eventually. You guys will have a different letter from me, but you're going to use the same process. So now what I'm going to do is I want to use a line to trace the outside edges of my R. This is how you can create bubble letters, or you can do pointed. So if you want to do a curved line around your R, you can. For me, I'm going to do straight lines because I want mine to look like the illuminated letters in our illuminated manuscripts. So notice while I'm tracing around my skeleton letters, I'm trying to stay a little ways away from them, but still trace that same shape all the way around. So now we're almost done, but if you have a letter like an R or a B or a D that has a little inside area, you're going to have to trace that inside area also. So now I've traced all the way around both sides of my skeleton letter, and I'm ready to erase that line. So I can now go in, use my eraser, and erase the line in the middle. Now, if you have a pen and you don't have a pencil, then you'll have to kind of get creative and figure out how to color over your line or add it to your design. But if you have a pencil, the nice thing is you can just go in and erase that. Now, if you want, you can go over that same line with a marker or whatever you would like. So I'm going to go ahead and do that really quick. I'm just going to trace my line so you guys can see it a little bit better on the screen. And then you'll know what happens next. And then if you trace it with a marker, you can always go in and erase those extra little pencil lines. So I'll go ahead and do that really quick. So now that I have the bubble letter, I'm ready to add my details. So in our objectives, I was wanting you guys to create that bubble letter and also make sure we're using at least 5 different lines and 5 different symbols to represent you. So let's start with some lines. I think I'm going to start with the zigzag. There's one. I can do a little wavy line, a little curvy, I guess. There's 2. Maybe some little lines that are almost shaped like fire. That might be cool. Here's 3. That's a 3rd type of line. I need 2 more. So I could do a little curly Q. And how about, so that's 4, maybe I'll do some little slanted lines over here. That might be interesting. I think I'll do them all the way around. All right, so now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different types of line. Cool. You guys can add whatever types of line you want. You don't have to do the same ones as me. And you guys can be creative. You can create your own line designs. And I'm really excited to see what you do. So now that I have my 5 different types of lines, I have my bubble letter. I want to create at least 5 different symbols that represent something about me. Now this might be a little bit like what we did with our monster in the jar, but it's not just going to be things that make you feel better, it's just going to be things about you. So for example, let's see, I really like flowers and plants. So maybe along here by my R, I can draw some grass. Maybe like my R is growing on top of some grass. I can do a flower. So there's one symbol, nature. I could do maybe some birds because I really like birds. So I'll put a bird on top of my R. I can do, how about a little, we could pour some paint on my R. That might be cool. So I'll pretend I'm pouring some paint. So these symbols, just like we did with our monster project, are things that are about yourself. So if you like sports, you could put something like from your sport. If you like writing, maybe you could draw a pencil. Ooh, I could put a pencil because I like writing. All right, now that I've added a bunch of details and symbols about me, I'm going to go in and add a border. A border is kind of like a picture frame. It makes what's called emphasis. Emphasis is when you want something to stand out. So now that I started my basic border, I just did a line around it. I want to make it more interesting. So I can add lines and other details, just like the borders in those illuminated letters that we looked at earlier. Now that I've added all my details, I can go in and start coloring. If you have colors, you can add whatever colors you guys would like. But remember, a really easy trick that I showed you guys before, if you're going to color inside of shapes that you already drew, is to trace the outside edges first and then color in the shape. This makes it a lot easier and faster to color inside the lines. Remember that you can always use skills that we worked on in other classes. Like if you want something to look more 3D, you can add shadows. You can think about where your light source is and where your shadows are going to be. For my example, with my paint can, I can add a shadow to the bottom and also a shadow to the inside if my light source is coming from over here. And another cool trick is if you decide to have a light source, you can then decide, oh, well, if my light source has a color, I can make all the light have that color too. And so you can have things look shiny and reflect off of the light. Up to you. This part isn't something that you have to do, but it would be cool and you could display all of the learning that you've done so far this semester. So remember, whenever we're doing our artwork, there's always two things that I'm looking for from you so you can get your automatic 3. Your first objective is that I can create a bubble letter, so whether it's a pointy one or a curvy one like I showed you, and create a border around it for emphasis. So we create that border, you make a little picture frame and design it however you would like so that your letter pops out and is emphasized. Number 2 is I can decorate my letter using at least 5 different types of lines. So let's count. I have zigzags, 1, little curvy line, 2, 3, loop-to-loops, these 4, these ones 5, 6. I have a lot more than 5, right? And you can always do more than 5. But as long as you have at least 5 different lines, that's what I'm looking for. And 5 different symbols about me. Remember, a symbol is a picture that says something. So I have my art supplies. That's a symbol for me doing art. I have my flower, my yucca plant, all those nature symbols because I love being in nature. I have my family, the little stick figures, my fish, and different symbols that tell something about me. And I want you guys to have at least 5. You can always do more. I know you could probably do stuff from video games or your favorite movies or just things you like to do with your family. It's totally up to you guys, all right? So 5 lines and 5 symbols. Sus objetivos en español. Yo puedo dibujar una burbuja de letra y dibujar un marco alrededor para ponerle énfasis. Número 2. Yo puedo decorar mi letra utilizando al menos 5 líneas diferentes. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Tengo mucho. Y 5 símbolos a que hablen de mí. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 y más. Don't forget that this week we are going to try to take a picture of our art assignment and turn it in the classwork tab in our Google Classroom. If you need help, please let me know. See you in art class.